Welcome to the Pastor Chira Show. I'm Pastor Chira, and today we launch. We launch into new territory. We launch into new mindset. We launch into new relationship. Are you ready to launch out? Come on and launch out with me as we go into this conversation on today. And today is a time when we are going back to the Pastor Chira Show live experience. And during that time, we did a segment with just the men. Yes, we had the men come in, sit down, and have a conversation. I stepped out, and I let them have their conversation on the expectations, the exceptions, and the exhaustions of being a man. Whoo! Heavy, right? It was a lot that was covered in this conversation. That was done by Elder Troy Crafton and Pastor Frederick Pompey, my co-host for the Pastor Chira Show. So I want you to sit back and hear part of the conversation that they had during the live experience. Are you ready? Let's go. So we're going to start this off, and I want our men to introduce themselves, and then they're going to go right into their conversation. Come on, put your hands together for them.
Well, we'll start with my far left. Well, no, we'll end with him because he's one of the, as far as this panel is concerned, one of the big brothers.
Senior leader.
This is my big brother. I'm gonna let him in because with him, just like Pastor Dana, if you don't hold on to your seat, you're gonna get blown away. Well, my name is Elder Troy Crafton, and I hail from Congregation Co-op Bethel in the great city of Philadelphia. Happy Sabbath. It is the Sabbath. Go ahead.
Happy former Sabbath. He said, "Son is down." I am Overseer Frederick Pompey. I'm the senior pastor of New Calvary Baptist Church.
My name is Stefan Singleton. Not a pastor or anything, but I think I can add some value to the group, so I'm happy to be here.
Substance. That's
my
what it's
name
about.
is Kevin Frollo. I preach every now and then when I'm asked to. I don't like to, but I like talking, so I'm glad to be here to have a conversation.
My name is Andre Person.
You hear it? You hear it, Lord? It's coming.
Lamar.
Yeah, that's my first name. I get to pastor God's people at New Harvest Temple, and yeah, that's me.
That's so humble. So humble. I get to pastor, and he's a great pastor. He's a great pastor, and I don't call him my big brother out of just common vernacular. This is a man that has I've known to have prayed for me, to have prayed with me. One of the greatest situations that I've been through in losing a spiritual father and in divorce, as I wanted to talk about how the young ladies that just left this stage, Lord God, done tore this stage up about their experiences. We have the same experiences, and my big brother has been there. He is a true man of God, a true man of God, and a true big brother to sit there and listen to me and to say, now, what was your fault? Because there was some stuff that was mine. And I took ownership. You have to take ownership of what you do in your experience, because everything is not everybody's fault. It's not everybody else's fault. But to have somebody in your life to make sure that you take ownership of you, because we all make mistakes. Make sure that you take ownership of you, and to be a great living example in his marriage and raising his children beautifully. I honor you, man.
Yes, amen.
He is the husband of one wife, huh?
My Lord.
One wife, 2 kids, 1 woman. You are the model believer. We were talking in the back, Overseer Person, Troy and I were having Elder Kraft and I were having a conversation in the back, Minister Furlow, about how as men, there's an expectation to cover, to get married, but nobody teaches us that cover is not control. Nobody says to us that you can cover her without trying to control her. Because people always say, man, get your girl, man, get your wife, as in shut them up and sit them down. But there's some things that I don't want to control. There are some things that she gonna say that I wanna say, but I can't. So we're not really taught that I can cover her without controlling her. How have you managed over these 25 plus years to learn how to cover First Lady Shelby Person without trying to control her?
One thing, well, let me just say we've been married 23 years as of last November. This November, last week.
Yeah.
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Last week.
Yeah.
Thank you. First of all, we never want to paint a picture as if it is a fairy tale. So our marriage has been a ministry. I get on her nerves and she get on mine. But our love is what kept us and has kept us together. I heard someone say, ask another person about their marriage and how did they last the 30-something years, 40, I think it's 30-something years. And their response, we never got mad at the same time. That's how we stayed together. We never got mad enough at each other at the same time to leave. So, but when you talk about control, we are to be providers, protectors, and I think when God said in the very beginning that we ought to be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth, subdue, and have dominion, he was not saying for us just to have children. Many thoughts of the past is just to have the woman pregnant, barefoot and pregnant, as the saying is, in the kitchen doing domestic values. But women, wives, hold more value, and they are valuable. They're priceless, actually. So to control them would make them less than who they are, and then less than who they are should be to you. So if you can control them, are they your wife or are they your pawn? Are you just using them to get what you want and to get what you need, or are they really your helpmate?
So when you talk about value, we were in the back talking, and Elder Crafton pointed out to me that the stop along the way between Jairus and Jesus, and when he was talking, I said to Troy, I said, all I heard the Lord say to me was, don't go back alone. Jairus went back, but he did not go back alone. And Elder Troy said, no, that's not it, Pompey. The stop added value to his faith. Because if I've heard you do it up until now, but now I get to experience what I heard, and that makes my situation more possible. And then we were talking back about how when you say a woman's value, Jairus' daughter could do nothing for him. She was a female child. Now, Old Testament teaches us, I go to school, it teaches us that females had no value then.
Correct.
It was a man-child that could carry the name and run the kingdom. So it was his love for her. Although she could do nothing for him, he wanted her to live. And sometimes we don't know without being called a punk, and we've got expectations and exhaustions, but there's another E word we don't deal with as men, that's emotions. Because if you can't be a man and express, then you talk too much. Then you a punk. And so he was able in his emotions to tell God about what he valued most, which was his daughter. So that leads me to this. How do we add value to our women without feeling devalued?
First of all, I believe I'm just jumping in. So if my brothers want to answer, they're definitely well able and capable. But I believe having a great sense of self-awareness and self-identity from the male and the female would cover a whole lot of territory. But we can't be suffering from a lack of confidence and low self-esteem and trying to cover the women in our life, trying to build their confidence. If you are not invested in a healthy you, how can you be invested in a healthy them? So oftentimes, if you're not taking the time to go through prayer and therapy, because both work hand in hand.
They do.
If you go through prayer and therapy and you're not less than a man because you go to therapy, you're not less than a man if you show emotions. Because the Bible tells us in Sunday school, I remember when we had memory verses. We would go through A all the way up through the alphabet. I was so happy when they got to J. You know why? Because the shortest verse in the Bible is Jesus wept. And the issue I have with our brothers today, or one of the issues that's prevalent among our brothers, I should state it that way, is that we aren't allowed to show emotion. But the greatest man that ever lived and is alive today showed emotions. Yeah. So if he wept, why can't I? If he can cry and yet be God, that didn't take nothing away from his deity. It took nothing away from his sonship. It took nothing away from him being father. He was all of that wrapped up in one. So therefore, he never took down because he was going through an emotional fit. He was showing us the human side, and he was showing us that God gave us emotions, and we're made in the image of God. So again, to go back to self-awareness, knowing who we are, and our identity.
I think to add value, you said for her is to know what she can do and let her do it. Know your lane and stay in your lane. Because if you cross over, it kind of gets a traffic jam. And that's how things, get messed up. So if you allow her to do what she does and know what she does and not be intimidated by it, I think you can have a smooth transition to where you want to go.
I want to touch on something you said about the emotions. I think for a lot of men, we need to heal the little boy in us, right? Because a lot of times we go through a lot of traumas as kids, and we never take care of it. We just mask it, hide it, and we go through life and we don't seek help, right? We taught not to cry. We taught to man up. We taught to be tough, and therefore we don't want to cry. We think it's soft to cry or make us less than a man to cry, and in turn, it just makes you lash out because you're just bottling up so many emotions and all that rage. So when it comes out, you're embarrassed, right? It's fear, and there's so many things bottled up because we never take the time to seek help, ask for help, and have good conversations amongst each other as men. And that's the toughest part, one of the toughest things for us.
Yeah, that rage, that's a true statement because I've experienced it. When you hold your emotions in, when you hold all of your feelings in, you tend to get frustrated and it comes out at the wrong time on a wrong person, and you're not addressing anything that you're supposed to so that you could be made whole. And the thing about it is, you said, we're taught not to cry and we're taught to man up. The only thing that I'm a big differ with that is we're not taught to man up. We're told to man up. Because we're told to man up, we're not taught, well, how do I get up from this? Jesus wept, the greatest man that ever walked the earth, right? Jesus wept, but nobody tells us or talks to us about, this is one thing that I have to learn, other people may have to learn, so that we could teach others. Once he stopped crying, what was next? What did he do once he rose back up? Okay, now, I done got the emotion out of that situation. How do I walk through this situation now? How do I be progressive inside of where I am? That's one thing that we need to learn.
I told you the conversation was deep, and it went deep. They talked about a lot of different things, and they dug into areas that we really don't talk about a lot. But we're going to put a pause in it right there, and we're going to go to a commercial, and on the other side, we'll hear a little bit more. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Act like we're looking at something. Act like we know.
night feeling like I need you. 'Cause all it's gotten me is trouble. But I'll die if I don't feel you. Give in to me if you're able. Yeah, isolation is a habit. I just need a drink to keep me up. Sticking to you like a magnet. Give me a shove when you've had enough. Give me one reason I shouldn't force myself to take what little I have and run. I just want more. Give it all I can till my body's gone numb.
We're back, and here we go into the conversation with the men of the Pastor Chira Show. Let's go.
I tell myself 5 times a week, Pompey, cry, but carry on. Cry, but keep going. And a lot of times, like you said, we don't know what it's like. And I believe it was Elder Nikki Moses that said, she said that your deliverance may come from another direction. Yeah. And sometimes when leaders and people we look to haven't dealt with their own stuff, they don't know how to tell you to deal with yours. And so the normal sentence is, man up. But the reality of it is your immaturity shows them theirs. And because they don't want to deal with them, they won't deal with you. And so then we find ourselves looking for creative spaces, or as Elder Moses said, sacred spaces. And that's why men from the church end up in all these cliques and clubs and fraternities looking for somewhere just to be themselves, somewhere to say that I feel less than the man. I know brothers who take care of the house, who pay the bills, but still feel less than a husband. Who tells them? Because our women's ministry, and even as little girls, y'all get baby downs and Cabbage Patch Kids. Y'all is mommies at 2. But boys are not given those things to nurture or raise kids. We play catch a girl, freak a girl.
Yes, sir. We do. Yes, sir. We did.
We're not taught to nurture. And I told the church last week that nature can never outdo nurture. And a lot of times we're not given these tools as men. We're taught to fight, not to talk. If someone disrespects you, we got to rumble. We can't sit down man to man, say, Troy, you hurt my feelings. Men don't say you hurt my feelings. And a lot of times it is because we cannot say the F word, which is feelings, things become fatal. We're not allowed to discuss these things. And Pastor Dana said something up here. She said that Elder Moses said she liked tuna fish. After years and years not eating it, she discovered she liked tuna fish. And Pastor Dana said, I stopped cooking with onions. Right? But as a man, there are some things that men give up to be husbands. There are things that I used to love when I was engaged. I lived for Friday night and this one particular TV show, but she wanted date night. And so I had to give up those. And as a pastor, we're not, as I make single choices as a single pastor, I can choose, let the church lights be on and mine's be off because it's just me. But if I had a family, I couldn't make those choices because I have a wife and kids, but nobody says these things to us. Nobody talks us through, mentoring us through manhood. There is no conversation. Once you get married, it's a high five. You ain't out the streets no more.
Welcome to the club. That's what they say.
Yeah, the old ball and chain.
Right. No.
There's no
more than that.
There's no complete conversation about what this means and how this looks. Nobody says to us, "You're a husband, okay, but now you're gonna focus on still tending to what you need."
Yeah. I believe in connection with that's why we have to provide these type of settings, because it is very healthy. We don't have a lot of healthy options. We don't have a lot of healthy options, and we don't have a lot of healthy minds that will help us through. That's why we need my brother who's a life coach. That's why we need a brother who's a minister with music. That's why we need yourself and Elder Craft. And we need you, and we need more, because we get up and do what we do, but we don't have a place, a safe place to reveal our heart, to reveal. But I believe, as Elder Crafter was talking, it's like he had me, but how many people don't have anybody? You know, how many brothers are walking around inwardly frustrated, trying to deal with their inward selves, their inward identity, their inward character, they're going through turmoil. Where they're getting the help. That's where we have to create these places.
I'm gonna get in trouble. Someone said to me, Pompey, you've always had, since your pastor died, you've always had female leadership. From your Aunt Juanita to your grandmother to Bishop Maureen Davis, and now Bishop Britton and Bishop Mack, you need a man to mentor you. And my response got a deafening silence from them, and I said, what do you do when you don't trust men? When these men have failed you, you don't know this. 2 years ago, I said, I oversee a person. I said, Dre, this is what's going on in my church. Something as small as an electrician. Here's the number, Pompey. Tell him I sent you. He gonna take care of you. So many people watched me go through what I went through and said nothing. They got sons and grandsons who are electricians and plumbers, and I don't know, Doc, because most men try to keep what they got to themselves. They won't share and tell you. So what happens when you don't have a Troy to call? What happens when you don't have, that's how we get to ourselves on our own. And sometimes a man by himself is the worst thing in the world.
And what's crazy is, I'm sorry, the word that everybody's using, how toxic that is. That's not bad. This is what's bad, is because not only the person that you ask that says, the I don't know doc, they're not helping you, and they're not even helping that other person progress.
Right.
So you're hindering you and hindering somebody else. So that makes you look bad on all angles.
I grew up Baptist.
Right. Praise the Lord. Yeah. Welcome.
And even being as a musician, young musician, there was never any kind of male mentorship anywhere. It was always women's ministries, women, mother's board, always ushers of women, always, everything was women. And most of us, my peers, grew up learning from the streets, learning from the bad side of what to do, learning that women shouldn't be disrespected. We learned that whatever you want to say to them, you say to them. We had nothing to counter that. Even in church, I saw things in church. I saw physical fights in church. I saw men hit women in church. And I'm figuring, well, if this is what going on in here, I mean, if you're doing that, then I guess I can do it too. I didn't do it, but I felt like, well, I had nothing to counter that. And so a lot of us men grew up with this mentality that we can do what we want to do, and no consequences.
So unpopular truth is, most of these sainted mothers who we revere in the faith had sinister husbands who don't go to church.
True, that's true.
Most of these mothers in Zion who could pray you through all your turmoil and see your sin, their husbands did not come to church.
Correct.
And so you find out, you look at, in my own family, I loved what I thought my grandparents were until to my grandfather's funeral, and I realized that he had a whole other family.
Oh, wow.
My grandmother held his secret. I just told this now, but we like, who these kids? But she held his secrets as if we didn't even know these kids even existed. And these are the examples we have as far as male leadership, as far as men in our family. And you look up now, and our church has seen an exit of men because we don't know how to deal with them. We don't know how to talk. Because as a man, you can't yell at me.
Right. Yeah.
You got to be, I have to talk to me nice. Because if you don't,
Right.
there's a whole nother side that you
Right.
definitely got. A
You're
PJ
right.
will meet you at the front door
You're right.
without a second choice of discussion.
You are correct.
But I think as men, as we discuss this platform, as Overseer Person said, we need more of this, these roundtable talks, because we could save a lot of marriages. We could save a lot of relationships because a lot of people just need to talk. And if you can't find a couch, if you do not know your insurance pays for 6 months, six visits, it's for free. You'll pay 6 visits, but we need to promote that, as Overseer Person said, as a man, you can get therapy. Find somebody to talk, and don't pick the one cousin with 6 baby moms and don't pay child support. Find somebody credible that you can talk to, that you can benefit from, and like he said, it'll tell you maybe you're the problem.
Power-packed, powerful conversation. These men sat and they talked about things that we don't talk about, that they don't talk about on a regular basis. But I know and I'm sure that these are areas that men need to talk about. So I want you to stay tuned, because we will do more of just that, where the men come together and they're able to have that safe space and safe place in order to unload and just say what needs to be said, in order to help one another build, grow, and mature. Yes, we're all still in maturing processes. We all have things that we are building on and we are growing too. All of us. Doesn't matter who we are. Doesn't matter how old we are. We all have things that we are still growing in. And I appreciate you watching the Pastor Chira Show live experience, the men's segment. So I want you to come back and hear us again on next week as we dig into something else. See you then.